Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jaron, back with another live video for you. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining me. I've got something important to talk about, and we're going to get started on that in 1 second. But first, I wanted to show you this, or we're going to put this on the screen for you. So I hope everybody's well. Hello to those in the chat. And I want to get this on the screen just so we have something background to play. Yeah, so enjoy that for a little while. It has something to do with what I'm talking about. So I'm not sure why it took me this long to realize it, but it kind of hit me in the last day or since last night. If you didn't know, I was on Red Rhetoric's little hangout show and basically got on that show against my better judgment. But the reason why is because 2 years ago, we had a little disagreement where I had told him if he wanted to debate me that he had to complete a challenge. And in my mind, he never completed that challenge. In his mind, he did. Well, he said, but he would do it again. And I said, okay, well, if he'll do it, then I'll have the debate, which I have no problem doing that. So he did show it. He did model it, I guess you could say. There's no doubt about it that what they showed is what was shown on the SpaceX launch. Now, that kind of leads me to what I'm talking about here. So, for instance, this picture here that we're looking at, there is no way for you to prove this is not real. There's just no way. I mean, I can look at it, and I'm assuming a majority of people can look at it, and clearly, without any shadow of a doubt, know that it's fake. And I think that that's part of what makes us human. It's the important, I mean, it's the I don't know, the crown jewel is having the ability to, review evidence, to observe things. And do we always get things right? No. But watch this Earth come around and you see through the car tire here in a second. And, oops, I guess I'm going to go around one more time. But you'll see, I mean, there's just so much wrong with this. And again, how are you going to prove it fake? Well, you can't prove it fake because there's only one group up there, NASA, SpaceX, the whole combination of them, I guess you can call it. But there's just no way to prove it. Astronomy Live may have video of a little white light flying by that was at the same time that they said that this thing would fly by. That's great. I certainly don't put it past anybody to have the ability to fool people, especially when you're talking about NASA. I mean, I'm somebody who thinks that they fake satellites and fool the people who worked on them. So I certainly know that they can fool Astronomy Live with his telescope if they wanted to. It'd be quite easy. So what I'm getting at here is the fact that I feel like we can all sit around and continue doing what we've been doing, which is arguing, bickering, complaining back and forth. Oh, I see this. No, this is curvature. No, it's actually refraction. No, it's actually lensing. No, blah, 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 blah. On and on forever. I mean, that would never end. And if you look at the whole plate of evidence we've been given from NASA, and if you watched that show last night, I kept telling Red that when you are given things from NASA, like the ISS transits, that NASA says this is when the ISS is planned to transit these areas. Go look at it; you'll see the ISS. I did. I saw the ISS. Anybody who can will see it. So when I see those things, that's kind of a sign to me that, well, if they're telling you where they're going to be, then they're going to be there. It's not like they're going to say we're going to fly by the moon at 11 o'clock and then you go out and don't see it. That wouldn't be very good for them. So you have to kind of look at things that they haven't done. What kind of things haven't NASA done? Because there must be a reason for it. Well, one of those things that nobody's ever done is to build some sort of structure that proves the curvature of the Earth. So what they would like us to do, this is what Nat Geo wanted to do, this is what the Independent Investigations Group wanted to do, this is what Red wants to do. Everybody wants to go above bodies of water and look across it. Why? Well, because we know why. That there's going to be an area of distortion that we're going to call forever an area of distortion, because it certainly doesn't prove people are upside down for me, and they're going to call it a curvature of the Earth. So that's a forever deadlock that will go on and on. Same thing with lasers. That a laser can always be said is bending. That's bending with the curvature of the Earth. Okay, great, whatever you say. And there's no way around that. It's just never going to be something that just because you shine a laser across and it hits the shore, nobody's going to say, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to believe in the globe anymore because of this laser. It's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen with talking and explaining it over and over again, and how the deception works, and how they could get away with it, and how Southern flights work, and how it's just going to go on forever. Even if you can explain exactly how the Southern flights work, nobody's going to switch positions for that reason. So I started thinking, okay, so time's up. It's 3 years, and this is getting ridiculous. And I said, okay, well, what could we do that is proof? And I was trying to think, like, what my old test, sending the laser through the little panels, and then I just said, you know what? It hit me, the force the line test, and all credit to Brian Mullen. Hope you're doing well if you're out there. Brian Mullen came up with a test probably a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, called Force the Line. And the difference between that test and any other test that anybody's done is it's not debatable. Meaning it cannot be, if constructed correctly. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that if we go out there with a hammer and nails that it's not contestable. It absolutely is. But if we were to get a team, either a professional contracting team, and let me show you what that test is, because I think some people, including myself, were confused about it at first. I didn't fully understand it. In fact, when I heard it and heard that it wasn't going to be next to water, I kind of dismissed it, because I've always felt like we need to be near water, next to water, because that's our baseline. We know that if the Earth's a globe, that the water conforms to the curvature. Therefore, I thought we needed to be near water to have that conformity, or to be at least near the level. When I re-listened to Brian Mullen's thing last night, I understood what he was saying. And I hadn't understood that before. So I'm going to pull this up real quick. Let me see if I can get my mic over here and move this over here. So let's see if this thing works here. So I'm going to take you to the screen. You should see a green chalkboard, hopefully. Okay, so again, as always, excuse my crap drawings, but you're going to have to live with them today. So here's what's interesting about this experiment. And right now, let's not think about money. Let's not think about supplies. Let's think about the experiment, because here's my kind of thought process. People have funded $7,000 billboards. People have funded a lot of things. So if we found something that, the majority of people agree on, that yes, this is the test, then I have no problem, putting up a GoFundMe. I'll contribute, $100, $200 myself, because I want the truth. I want a measurement. This way, for instance, this debate that's coming up with Red, and I'm not saying we're going to be done with this by the time I have that debate, but imagine how easy it would be if I had this test prove that the Earth is flat. I'd go in there and just say that over and over again. And he would say, yeah, but the math says, I say, there's the test results. Go measure it yourself. Go measure it. And it's over. So why keep talking about Kanagawa? And if you hear me talking out like that, I'm talking to myself. If anybody's pissed off at anybody, it's me. So don't think I'm saying, why do you keep talking about these things, guys? It's me. Why do I keep talking about Kanagawa? And it's 175 miles. And it's 9,000 feet. But that will never be enough for somebody to say the Earth is not what I've been taught. It's actually flat. Because there can be a lot of reasons. Yeah. Do I believe in refraction lifting up mountain chains 2 miles? No. No, it's not lifting up mountains. But I can see where people will say, oh, everything else fits the globe. So I'm going to go with the globe belief that that's what's happening. That's what science says, that it's lifting. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what science says when you measure the Earth and there is or isn't curvature. Period. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what every scientist in the world said. Doesn't matter if everyone in the world believes something different. If something's a fact, something's a fact, and that's what we need to show. And if it's not, then it's not. And then we don't need to worry about it anymore. There is no other discussion I need to have. There isn't any other thoughts I need to have about it. All that we've been discussing for 3 years is because there's the absence of a provable and demonstrable, repeatable experiment. No matter what we do with balloons, lasers, high altitude balloons, everything's got a value of interpretation in it. Everything's got the human eye to say, well, no, I see the curve there. Well, I don't. I actually think that's the edge of a circle. Okay? I see refraction. Well, I see the horizon. Well, I see it a little higher. Well, I see crepuscular rays. Well, I don't. I think they're going this way. Nah. It'll get us nowhere. It's gotten us nowhere. So I feel like even the Globe group, Red's Rhetoric, Sean Hufford, those guys, I think they would get behind something like this. And it would have to be a big event where a lot of people would have to go out there and help because it's not an easy project. But it's the kind of project that it would be done. It's done. It is or it isn't. So let me give you an idea of what we're talking about. And I'm just kind of basing this on Brian Mullen. And then what I want to do after is I'm going to give a site to Google Forms or give a web address. And it's a place to submit ideas, corrections, retractions, different kind of suggestions for this test or any other kind of test. I'm looking for any test. If somebody's got an idea, but here's the deal. Nothing optical. It has nothing to do with line of sight. I don't want any test that has anything to do with looking over bodies of water, anything. We have to build something. So maybe when I give this idea of the force of line, something will click with somebody to where they'll say, oh, I've got an idea. So let's just go with the force of line, kind of the idea that Brian Mullen had, where what we basically got is let's just put it like a fence. Okay, so we're going to have to construct. That's a nice drawing there. Sorry about that. Let me get this thing back. I'm not having not a very good posture here. Okay, this is better. All right, so you've got a fence that you would build. Now, I'm not saying it's out of wood. I'm not saying it's out of metal or anything. And this fence has to go for 2 miles. Okay, and you might go a post every 10 feet, which would be in the end about 1,000 posts of wood. But see, even that, which sounds crazy, but you can get a 4x4 post that's 5 feet for, less than $10. So I mean, you're talking just that you have 1,000 times, so it's $10,000 for the wood. But I'm sure you would get a deal. We could get it down. So let's not worry about the money, as I said. So this fence that we go down, and maybe we get a contracting team to do it. So it's not it's not just a bunch of people doing it. And here's the important part. They also have these little, I'm sure you've seen them before. They're these little tiny bubble spirit levels, right? They're little green ones. So, my thought would be that on this top post here, you would want to attach one of those on every post, because what we need is 2 miles of level posts all the way across. Okay, so if they're 10 feet long, if they're 5 feet long, whatever, this post here, we need to be level. Now, here's because I texted a couple people today, and a few people said things like, oh, but people will just say we found a flat area. And this is where I thought differently as well. So if the ground is uneven, it doesn't change the fact that these posts need to be level. So if there was a hill, well, then you can't keep these posts level, so therefore you can't do it there. It has to be 2 miles of flat ground, which I live in Merced, California. There's 2-mile stretches all over the place here. So it's not like it's hard to find. It's just a matter of finding a place that's going to allow us to build a fence. So, there's definitely some things that need to go into this. But when we have this little fence here, we build it all the way down. And then what you do is, once this is level, then this is the equivalent of your water line. Because even if we level every single one, let me clear this a little bit. Okay, so even if we level every single post, okay, we would never see, the curvature of the earth. meaning you would just keep leveling posts, leveling posts. And according to the globe, they say that if we went around, we would come all the way back around after 25,000 miles. And we would never notice that, right? Because each of these bubble levels is going to be perpendicular to the center of the Earth. So what the force the line experiment does is once we've built that 2-mile fence, and we have, clear this out again. Once we've built that 2-mile fence and it's level, okay, so you've got all these little sections, but we can walk it. Everybody walk it together. You're going to walk every single one of these cross beams and make sure that they're all level, because they have to be. Then once we have that done, that becomes the curvature of the Earth, because it's level, therefore it conforms to the curvature of the Earth. It's the same as the surface of water. Same thing, because each of these bubble levels is water or spirit, whatever. So once we have that done, then we go back, and this is the part that's called force the line. What we do is we take a certain distance, let's say 36 inches below that post, and we construct a bracket here or a post here. But instead of this post, we would level the first one. Here we go. That one's leveled. Okay, it's leveled with this post. Everything's good. Now what we start doing is we don't level it anymore. No longer do we level these posts. What we do is we take, and this would have to be like a machine thing. I think what Brian Mullen was talking about is basically this beam here getting like 5 high precision either metal pieces, whatever, so that they are perfectly cut, perfectly square. And then what you do, if we only need 5 of these to go all the way across the 2 miles, what you do is you do the first one, and then you take this one and you square it up with this post here. Square it up completely. That's why I'm asking people. I don't know if we need a machinist out there, if we need some sort of digital, tracking device. I'm not sure, but we need to make sure, excuse me, that these 2 posts are completely and totally flush. Okay. Then you would do the next post. What happened to my marker? There we go. So then you do the next post. Same thing. You make sure that they're perfectly right here at this point. They need to be completely square. Then what do? You grab number 1 and you move it to here. And you continue on down the path. Now, when you get to the end of 1 mile, well, we know that already this post should be 8 inches closer to this one. Okay, so if this one's 36 inches, well, we should already be at 28. Okay, but we'll keep going. Go down to the end of the 2 miles. At the end of the 2 miles, when you get to that very last post, which we know this part up here was level with the surface of the Earth, this post that was on the bottom is either going to be 32 inches. We said 36 inches was the distance between them. Well, we should be almost touching posts, meaning this post should be here if the Earth is curved. So if that makes any sense, I may have made a mess of that. I'm sure I did actually, but hopefully you get the idea. What this structure would be is something that really people couldn't argue with, because everyone should be at every station agreeing. Squared up, perfect, done. Move to the next one. We'd have to get some sort of bracket system. We would need help from people that are in this line of work, engineers, and it should be that way. It should be perfect, because with the kind of money that it's going to cost, with the kind of work it's going to take, but I feel like it's time that we did something like that. People, like I said, people have been funding billboards. People have been funding lots of different things, balloon launches, you name it. But I feel like everyone wants the truth. We don't want to just keep going through this over and over again. And I feel like this is the kind of thing that is proof. And then you know what? You can let mainstream media laugh at Flat Earth. You can let them make fake documentaries. You can let them do whatever. What difference does it make? The test has been done. It can be repeated. The great thing would be if we could leave that fence somewhere. Wherever we build it. Maybe somebody knows where somebody has 2 miles of empty farmland out in Kansas. Maybe somebody knows where there's 2 miles of empty farmland in California. Somebody could have their business there. It's not like we would need to overtake it. At the canal, where we did our experiment, the canal experiment, that is a 3.88 mile stretch, and we only really need 2 miles, in my opinion. You don't need to go 3. 3 is 6 feet. I think that if you were precision enough, you'd be able to do it with a change of 32 inches over that 2 miles. So, I don't know how much it would cost to have a construction team build the 2 mile fence and make sure that it's level, and then we go and walk it after. I was looking today. This is going to sound kind of crazy, but I was looking today how much levels were. I did see a couple levels in the 6-foot range for like $10, $15. I would like to see them, maybe $1 each. Talking about $1 per foot. But I was thinking you could construct the tops with levels. So now you're making sure this way when we walk, these are 6-foot levels, all completely leveled. We walk it and make sure it's perfect because that's your surface of water, and that's your baseline. That's where you go from. And then what you're doing is you're building this piece here, and rather than it being with the center of the earth, it will be at this first post, but then every post just needs to be squared with this one, and you need to force the line. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and does this line start to go up and get closer to this one, which is what would happen if the earth is curved. Because if this is your baseline, then you're going to, as you square these up, you should be curving, this would be curved, technically, if the earth's a globe. So if it's curved, then this line should go up and meet it. And that's what I mean by when you get to the end, you're going to be 36 inches here, 4 inches here. So that's basically what I'm looking to do, and because time for talk is over. I mean, I could sit there and talk to those guys till I'm blue in the face, and here's the problem with it, is they have the ability of just saying science, just everything that they believe is a fact. So how are you going to ever defeat that? You can't disprove all their facts. You can't. It's been set up in a way that you wouldn't be able to do that. And I think I forget sometimes that this is in my opinion, not saying anything's a fact, that this is the biggest hoax that there is. This is the lie they have to protect. And, I've seen a lot of people say things like, oh, but why is this showing up in the media? The media is using it, so it has to be a psyop. Here's the thing. If you lied about something, like the shape of the earth, which you would then teach to very young children the preposterous idea that you're on a giant spinning space rock, and then you would make sure that any discussion about the flat earth was squashed. You would make fun of it. You would teach people what's the dumbest belief that anybody can have. And then you'd have everybody coming out of school being globe believers. And if that was the case, then what you'd have to make sure of is that you would have to keep it down by not allowing anybody to talk about it. But here's the problem. If it started to come out, like it has the last 2 years, and the media caught wind of it, well, the media is, granted, the media is controlled, but they don't ask questions when it comes to stories like that. If somebody's going to do a story on 9/11 was Building 7 controlled demolition, well, they're going to go to their upper management and say, hey, can I do this story? And they say, well, I'll let you know. Get a call back now. We're not going to run that story. Okay. So the reporter wouldn't even ask a follow-up question like, why not? The reporter's smart enough to realize that there's some contention in the country. That was it a false flag? Was there any kind of American involvement? So they would understand why they don't touch that story. But if somebody told them you cannot do a story on flat Earth, they would say, why? What do you mean? And then they would start questioning. Well, why can't I do So that's why it's in the media so much, because as we've been bringing it out and it's talked about, it looks like to media centers that want ratings as a hilarious story. I'm going to go down to the conference because it's a hilarious story. People think the earth is flat again. Well, this is the one thing that the powers that be would have to dread the most, because they couldn't tell people. I mean, I think the amount of people that would know would be so few. So few. Because what you do is it's just compartmentalized. You only tell the people who need to know, and it would be so few. Many people might know that there's a fakery of space going on. There's a lot more of that. But just because you know you're faking space, you wouldn't know that that means that the Earth is not a ball. You wouldn't know that. So anyway, basically, what I am trying to say is, if that's the way that it went down, and that's the way that it was, then we need to do something like this because it's never been done. And that makes me question, I mean, if they could just easily build a structure that would prove that the Earth was a globe, they would have done it. They would have done it. It's enough reason for me to want to do it. To want to do it because they would have done it. If there is a way that they could build a structure and show everybody and take field trips there, and somebody else said, I think it was Brian Mullen said that they could even light this structure up. And as you're driving down the road and say Utah Highway 80 or whatever, you could look and you would actually see the lights, and the top bar would be conforming with the curvature of the Earth, and you would actually see the force to line bar kind of rising up. Well, again, that's if we ever had like funding and were able to keep that force to line bottom bar all the way across. I think when Brian Mullen was talking about it, he was talking about getting a high precision, either piece of metal or metal beam, something that we use to do the force to line, and use like 5 of them and leapfrog. 1, 2, 3, then leapfrog 1 to 4, then 2 to 5, 3 to 6, then back to 1 to 7. So, and I like that idea because it does save money. But at the same time, then it's not a structure that somebody can walk up and do again. It would be great to leave it there. But again, who was going to have that on their land? So the question goes out to everybody that listens to this in the next week or two. If you have any knowledge or any connections or any ideas regarding places, people, companies that you think might help, and I think that we need to do it in a very open way, to where, as I'm talking about, like have the level, little bubble levels on every board, so that anybody can walk in that 2-mile stretch at any point and verify that everything is on the up and up. And it's not something that needs to be filmed and then shown to people. People that are there should all be there to verify, have their own cameras showing everything is exactly as dictated. And then as a team or whatever, we go through and force the line. And to me, that's something where if we get to the end of that 2-mile stretch and that board is 4 inches from the top board, then I can't, yeah, sure, I can still believe that they're faking space, whatever, but I can't say the Earth is flat anymore. Clearly, the Earth has curvature. I just proved it. So that's what I want to walk away from that from. And then if it's proven to be flat, then there's no worry. I don't care that people laugh at it. I don't care that people think they're so smart, because they're not. They wouldn't be. They would be. It would show what all their smarts did, and would show all the. I wanted to show a video, just that I think the beginning of it is very important to show, and listen to what Noam Chomsky says. People may have their opinions of him. I like him, but we can't all like the same people. But he has a video here on education, and I want you just to listen to what he's saying about how the school system has worked, because he's exactly right. This is exactly how they did it. And let's go ahead and...
The Wix logo.
Okay, that was loud. Let me see here. What do I have got to do here for you to see this? All right. And this one, I think. Okay, so let's listen to just the first minute or so of this
Maker.
speech.
You can create a professional logo for your brand. Go to Wix.com.
I'm wondering how you see the role of our educational system, what it's doing right now, what forces are driving it, and what constraints are on it, and how should it operate?
Mm-hmm. Well, I quoted the Trilateral Commission view of the educational system, namely it's a system of indoctrination of the young. And I think that's correct. It's a system of indoctrination of the young. That was the way the liberal elites regard it, and they're more or less accurate. So the educational system is supposed to train people to be obedient, conformist, not think too much, do what you're told, stay passive, don't cause any crises of democracy, don't raise any questions, and so on. That's basically what the system is about. Even the fact that the system has a lot of stupidity in it, I think, has a function. It means that people are filtered out for obedience. If you can guarantee lots of stupidity in the educational system, like stupid assignments and things like that, that the only people who will make it through are people like me and like most of you, I guess, who are willing to do it no matter how stupid it is, because we want to go to the next step, So you may know that this assignment is idiotic and the guy up there couldn't think his way out of a paper bag, but you'll do it anyway because that's the way you get to the next class. And you want to make it, and so on and so forth. Well, there are people who don't do that, there are people who say, I'm not going to do it, it's too ridiculous, Those people are called behavioral problems, or something like that. They end up in the principal's office or in the streets or selling drugs or whatever. And all of this is a technique for selection for obedience. And I don't know how to prove this, but I have a feeling that when you go to the elite universities, you find more obedience and conformity, probably because you're getting the students who were better able to do it. You know? Well, all of that is functional. That's the way it works. And it works right through graduate school. I mean, by the time.
So you can check that out. Good video. It's about 7 minutes long. But really, it's a technique to separate out conformity. And when you think about it, you've got this group of people out there that insist on believing that this is real. Those are conformists. They're not going to buck the trend. They're not going to be the person that stands up and says, that's fake. Well, I'm that person. That's me. That's fake. So whether conforming to society's rules requires me to say that that's not fake and that that's Elon Musk, who's the greatest genius of our time, who, discovered PayPal and now he's running a rocket business and he also runs Tesla and he has billions of dollars. If I'm, that's a conformist who believes those things because it's what's told to you in the media. It's what's given to you to believe. So there's way more than half this world that believes what they're given without question. And there's some of us who say, no, that's bullshit. This is fake. So that's the difference is how are you ever going to convince the very people that have been put in the places that they are for the reason that they are going to back what they believe in to no end? They're not going to go away from it. They're not going to shy away from it. It's just not going to happen because in their minds, they've been given it. It must be true. Nobody would give me anything that isn't true. It must be true. And that's the end of that. So, in my opinion, obviously there's a ton of things that they believe that are not true. Ton of things. And whether they think that they believe it on their own, Red's Rhetoric said something to the effect of he's going to come to the debate and he's going to bring all his own observations. That's fine. He observes things going to the sky, which I don't disagree with. He's never observed anything go into space. Never, he says he has. I think he says he can see it with his camera. Or I don't know what he thinks he's seen into space. I would like to see that. But whether or not planets exist, whether or not they are what we're told they are, the distances that we're told, they're actually orbiting bodies that are landable, that people have been to the moon. These kind of things are simply conforming to what they have to conform to. You don't have an option in the science world to question the moon landings. Despite everything right in front of your face in this video here, if you are a science fan, you don't have a right to question this. You're not allowed to. You'll be quickly removed from your circle of science-loving friends. You will not be allowed to watch Big Bang Theory anymore. Worst show on TV ever. That's another thing. If you know somebody who likes the Big Bang Theory, then that's the conformist group. That's your measuring stick right there. If you like the Big Bang Theory, you're in that group over there. Because I don't see anybody can like this. What a terrible show. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. That you've got this kind of conformity to where they're just going to back everything that's been handed to them. That they believe that this guy Cavendish in his shed went out there and was doing these intricate measurements and had telescopes through the walls and knew all the density of all the walls and the ceiling and was able to figure out Big G from his shed in 1790 something. That's what they believe. And they believe that Kepler was sitting there with his notepad and figuring out his laws, and so was Newton. And I bet you everything in motion stays in motion unless that's what they believe. They don't understand that that's a story. That these are stories, just like the apple falling on the head, just like all these stories that are given as some sort of like proof or fairy tale stories. They're just like religion. Religions have their stories. Science has their stories. It's the same thing. They understood what grabbed people. They understood that. The stories, the lore, and Galileo, and he was persecuted by the church, and he was jailed at the end of his life. He wasn't jailed. He was put on house arrest in a castle, and he was blind. So where was he going to go anywhere? He's going to go ride a horse somewhere? No, I don't think so. So these are all just folklore. It's all just stories. And people believe it. They eat it up because they just love it. And again, if you just really, you're not going to convince them of that, is what I'm trying to say. is I can sit here and tell you, and maybe half the people out there say, no, I agree that we can't guarantee George Washington existed. We can't. You can't do it. It's impossible to prove that. And so once you start realizing that, and you realize going back that we can't prove all those things, then you can understand where it could have been a deception. And it certainly appears that we've got people who are going to, believe this no matter what. They're going to, even though, there's no signs of things turning into spheres because of gravity. You can go pour a bunch of, craisins in the ISS, and they're not going to get together and become a sphere. And how did things become a sphere anyway? In space, it doesn't make any sense. They exploded from star guts, and we have supernova stars that are 20, or neutron stars are 22 billion pounds a tablespoon. Those are things that are believed by conformists because somebody told them a neutron star, a teaspoon of neutron star weighs 22 billion pounds. So there's two people in the world. One that says, really, 20, that's interesting. Wow, that's cool. That's really cool. And there's people who say, bullshit. Bullshit. Show me proof. Oh no, we've got these telescopes and they've done this, they can zoom in and then they analyze with the spectroscopy, the light coming in, and no, they don't. There's a computer program that tells them maybe that, and that's what needs to be for gravity to work out, but it's not true. And anybody who claims it's true is out of their mind, just like anybody who says they know the age of the earth. They're out of their mind. They don't know the age of the earth. They've got men who have gotten together and they've all stuck to the same story, and it's become consensus science, but it's not truth. And too many people believe things to be true. And here's the hard part. I can't prove it's not true. How am I going to prove that? It's already a fact that the earth is 4.54 billion years old. It's already a fact that the universe, look at this picture. Give me a break. You can see, how is that not a light? That's the sun. 93 million miles away. That's the sun. Sure it is. But I mean, look at it through the tire. Look at through the tire. That is hilarious. Really funny. And but this is real, by the way. This is where you live. You live on this ball here going around that doesn't even show like any sides. It's just like a 2D piece of cardboard being carried around by a bunch of leprechauns or something. I don't know. Now I lost my train of thought because I'm stuck on this car in space. Well, again, the same thing there. You're not going to prove that. You just can't prove that it's not true. Now, they get to prove that it is true because they say it is and then tell you, well, no, you're making the claim it's not true, so give us proof. That makes no sense. Makes no sense. The claim is that this car is in space, and their proof is this video, and that's all that there is. So, that, notice what's going on there. Notice how NASA does the same thing. There's just no way to disprove this. Even if Astronomy Live filmed it at a different place, you think he's going to come out and say, oh, this has been disproved. They're actually, no, he's just going to fudge his numbers a little and say, yeah, they were there where they're supposed to be. Because he's a conformist. He loves all that they're doing. He thinks that it's important that what they're doing in space is given nothing to humanity, but he thinks it's important, and that's conformist because that's what they tell us, how important space is. They tell us that all the time. I mean, we've got Donald Trump announcing his space farce, yesterday or whatever, which is just more signs, although I do think it's his daughter that's pushing this because, well, that's my own reasons. But obviously, when you're the president, you don't have any kind of control over everything. You have to have people in different places giving you direction. And this is just more money for NASA. It's more money for space so that they can continue to do nothing. And they'll promise him, just like they promised Daddy Bush, just like they promised son Bush, just like they promised Clinton, just like they promised Obama, that they're going back to the moon. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if none of those presidents knew. None of them knew. But that's not a person that needs to know that the earth is not what they taught everybody. They don't need to know that. So those people didn't know. And they were told, we're going to go back to the moon because I'm sure they're going to say, what the hell are you guys doing over there? Oh, we're going back because we need a little bit more $1 billion, just a little bit more. And they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it. And they've never done anything, and they never do anything. It's the same old thing. They got rid of the shuttles. Why? No 24/7 view. Why? No camera on the moon. Why? Can't show a night camera of the stars in space. Why? Oh, because you don't understand aperture. The camera is not set for take pictures of. Give me a break. Give me a break. So, let's see here. The other thing I was going to say, and I was getting into talking about history and all these guys' beliefs, and It's just so many stories are given to us. I mean, like, does anybody know what Kepler said? So Kepler, he had all the answers, right? He brought the elliptical orbit, which it was like the answer for everything, because Ptolemy thought it was circular. Copernicus kept the same thing, and his was even worse than Ptolemy's. And then Kepler fixed it all with these elliptical orbits. And Kepler, who did all this work, I think he stole it from Tycho, but he taught that the Earth's orbit was an eclipse, with the sun is one of its foci. Okay, so you think of an oval or an ellipse. You have two different foci, right? You got you don't really have the center. It's kind of one end or the other. And he said that the sun was a little over 12 million miles from the Earth. So this is the guy that got it all right, but thought that the sun was 12 million. And this is an example of how when things change, you just adjust all the numbers. It's not like a big deal because, well, the sun is a center of gravity, so if it is at this close, well, then it's this size and it weighs this much. But if it needs to be moved out to make their stuff work, you just need to increase the size, change the distance. Everything's just a number. It's just space numbers. It's easy. If something's not meeting observation, you just adjust the numbers. And by the time they've gotten to today, the numbers are pretty much perfect. The numbers are perfectly in line that you're not going to find a mathematical error. But it doesn't mean it's reality. It's just numbers. So, I mean, he thought, and then we've got today that they've had to basically lengthen the sun's distance by what? Almost 100 times. Or at least, 100 million miles. Close to that. And the orbit by some 300 million miles, right? To my head, we have, 584? Yeah, over 300 million. So you're talking about that huge change in the Earth's orbit, and it just goes by without a blink of the eye. They can just change things easily. I think Newton even thought it was less, 4 million. No, Copernicus thought it was 4 million. So this is what I'm trying to point out, is that they think today that those numbers must be right, but they've been changed throughout the whole belief anyway. And it's not like they're adjusting them to make them match observation, but they're not going out and measuring. At least in my opinion. Again, I'm not trying to say anything's a fact. I'm just saying that you need to look into that. And the other thing is that, once you realize that everything's a hoax, everything's a scam, and again, these conformists are not going to believe that because they believe what they're told. And if you believe that stuff, well, then of course you don't think things are a scam. The conformist is the one who will tell you when you say something about a conspiracy theory, they'll say, but Bill Clinton couldn't even keep a blowjob a secret. Only 3 people knew about that. And they don't understand the other story, which is Ken Starr said that the girl's name was a double M. He didn't say that her name was a single M. Okay? So what the double M was, look it up, Mary Mahoney. Mary Mahoney was an intern who was having an affair with Bill Clinton, who worked at a Starbucks, who was found dead, shot in the head 4 or 5 times with 3 employees in what they called a robbery, where the robber took no money. The robber went into a Starbucks, put the 4 employees in the back office, shot all 4 of them, Mary Mahoney a couple times in the head, the other ones a few times each, and left the store and locked the door on his way out. Look it up. It's called a robbery. So he robbed that Starbucks. Because that happens all the time. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to rob this Starbucks, shoot you 4, take off without any money. Who does that besides somebody that's out to kill you for a reason? You're done. Well, then the MM never came out. The double M that Ken Starr kind of floated out there never was released. And then here comes Monica Lewinsky, who's also an intern, who basically takes the fall. Why? Because you pay him. Monica, we need you to do us a favor. You like Bill, right? You met him before. Hey, maybe they had some sort of relation, but hey, we need it to come out because enough people have been talking about this. You need to be the M. You need to be the girl. So when people say like, oh, well, only 3 people. No, the conspiracy is so far deeper than that. That's what they tell you in the news. That's what they put out there in front of you so that conformists say, there you go. Yeah, can't keep a secret. Look at this. So it just becomes easy to start to see that either people recognize that we're being fooled in many ways, or they don't. And my hope is that most people see, because if not, then we're in big trouble. I don't want to be, thank goodness I'm not going to be part of the next generation or my son's generation, because that ain't going to be pretty. Because when I say everything's a hoax, what is not? I mean, all of media is bought and paid for. These things aren't questions. Now, a conformist would question that. Now, the media is not bought and paid for. What do you mean? You're making that up. When you can just go look that there's, CIA, Project Mockingbird, that these CIA assets have been working in the media for 50, 60, 70 years. That was the goal. And how smart is that? Think about it. Okay, well, let's see. We have this huge country of people here, and they're all going to believe whatever the TV box tells them. I wonder how we can be in charge of who talks on the TV box. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll put a couple people in media, in all the different big media, and then we'll boost them up so that Fox becomes the big news, and NBC and CNBC and CNN, and then they make sure that their assets are there, and then guess what? Everything you hear is exactly what they want you to hear. There's some of us that recognize it, some of us that are conformists. So you've got that. You've got every agency of the government is out to get you. I mean, where are they protecting you? Is the FBI protecting you? Is the CIA protecting you? Is the IRS protecting you? They're not out to protect you. They're against the people. So science has been politically motivated for years and basically does whatever the corporations need them to do. It's the same thing with everything else. It's lobbying. That Michelle Thaler, who did that video about 3 flat earth things or 3 reasons the flat earth can't be true, she used to be a scientist, like an actual one that did research and submitted papers, and now she's just a public speaker, and she says that her main job is getting funding by constantly writing papers and grant requests, and that's what all science is. It's about getting money. And so if there's nothing fancy and like, I'm just going to go repeat these experiments and do this and this, then they wouldn't do that. So it's all about, what am I getting money for? Well, this corporation needs this to come out, and this needs to, papers need to be said about this. Okay, well then the science goes and does that. And it's just a big vicious circle. Noam Chomsky just told you and people aren't going to question it. People aren't going to say they're not this is why only those people get to graduate school. This is what they do. They weed you out. You're questioning what we're doing here? Get out. I saw it happen to me the second CVS came into Long's Drugs and took over. The second the corporation took over a mom and pop 500 store team, they came in, and if I asked questions, which were the correct questions to ask, they said, you better stop asking questions. And then I got back from my wedding, and they said, here's your first warning in 14 years for the most ridiculous reason ever. It's like, okay, now I see what's going on here. You don't want thinkers, you want monkeys. You want people that are going to show up at the store every day and just do whatever the paper says, even if it makes no business sense at all. Even if I've got a better business sense than what you're telling me to do, I've been running these stores for 14 years. You just want me to listen to you because that's what they want. They don't want me making my own decisions. So I left. And this goes on everywhere throughout the world. If you look, every corporation is being taken over. Every corporation is taking over these little guys because then they can get into this more conformist thing, just like Walmart, pay your employees basically next to nothing and make a ton of profit in the process. And as long as they are, I guess, supplying people with food, people aren't going to stop shopping there. So you've got all those kind of places that are in on it, or not in on it, but I mean are part of the system. It just seems like every branch of medicine, again, this makes no sense. Why, as a child, I never realized that. It's like, these doctors, they want me healthy so that they don't make any money anymore. Yep, that's why I'm going to the pediatrician. I wish I could have been that smart. I wasn't. I went to doctors all my life thinking that that was what I want to do. I got to go, I got to take this pill. I got to take that pill when I'm, no. It's, they've just hijacked your own immune system. And I'm not saying doctors aren't fantastic and that you shouldn't use them sometimes. Believe me, if I have a need for heart surgery, I'm not going to my butcher. So I'll be going to, the heart surgeon. But what I'm saying is when you look at the whole plate and then you see it's the same thing, it's the lobbying on that side is for these big pharma companies. And you can see that in the paperwork. Again, there's nobody who's ever issued an immunization, no company, Merck, all these guys, that didn't stand in court and admit to fraud. And we let them tell us what goes into our child's bodies. Oh, you've admitted to fraud in court, but you say that this immunization's safe and that one's safe? Okay. But in the past you were frauding? Okay. Just making sure. Yeah, go ahead, put that in my child. Because conformists know we just do what we're told. You say immunizations are good. What are we supposed to say about people who don't like immunizations? They're nutcases? All right, they're nutcases. You guys are nutcases. What about people who believe in conspiracy theories? Nutcases? You're nutcases. Nutcases, people who believe in conspiracy theories, people who are anti-vaxxers. What about climate control? What if they don't believe? Oh, really? Okay. Sorry. Climate change, you're also a nutter. If you, these are, it's just so obvious. And you've got all these little, people walking around like, oh, you can't, you don't believe in, and the sad thing is I do believe in it. I do believe in climate change. I think that there is changes going on. I'm not saying it's, if anything, it's not human caused like us. It's the damn government. Have you seen everything they're doing in this world? Digging up just nasty ass holes everywhere, just tar infested bullshit, oil everywhere, fracking everywhere. Yeah, I don't doubt that climate change is going on. It's not my fault. Believe me, my little computer here running off the, I'm not putting a carbon footprint out there, okay? It's not me. So, anyway, I don't know why I got off on that tangent. But I know a lot of people don't believe in it at all. I don't think that's necessarily true. I just think they're the ones that started it. They're the ones who did it. Certainly not us. But it just seems like every news story, every voice of truth is silenced. The entire, like I said, mainstream media, Google, Facebook, Twitter, now becoming a kind of a place that's going to squelch free speech, the thing that our country was founded upon. Think of the banks, right? Banks are a disaster. Banks, the debt system. Once you understand how money is lent out and how the bank needs to lend out more money to make more money and request more money and how that all works, then you're on to that scam. But the world is set up. It's kind of the same thing. Like, how are you going to knock that down? How are you going to knock science down? Well, sorry, I got off on a tangent. The whole point of this is a way with the force the line, in my opinion, that we can knock it down. Now, could it be proven that the Earth's a ball? Sure, absolutely. I'm not going to say it can't be proven. I'm not one of those guys who say the Earth cannot be flat. The Earth cannot be flat because I was taught it was round. Have you ever seen it? No, but I was taught it was round. How could it be flat? Okay, well, I'm not one of those people. I'm saying, well, all the signs, all the things lead me to say, I don't think the Earth's a globe. I don't think I'm spinning. Don't think I'm flying through space. I don't think there's endless galaxies. I don't think that there's 100 billion stars. I don't think that the stars are suns. I don't think that the stars are 35 trillion miles away. All those things. But could I be wrong? Sure, of course. I could be wrong. There's an awful lot of evidence that shows me the other side, but I could be wrong. But by doing this test, we'll find out. So let me give you the website to go to. It is, I think you could just put in, did I shorten this code? Yeah, I did. So if you go to bit.ly/force the line, FORCETHELINE. Whoops. Oh yeah, force the line. If you put that in again one more time, it's bit.ly/force the line. And it's just a little form you can fill out that says something about, have you done any experiments in the past, what went well, what didn't, just for my own knowledge. And then it's asking, do you have suggestions for the force the line? Do you know anybody that would be helpful, either construction, somebody, logistics, transportation, I don't know, area, location, doesn't matter to me, whatever you have that could help out. And then, hopefully that if we do kind of get this rolling, maybe there's some company out there that wants to finance it and have their name all over it. I don't care. You could put Target's logo all the hell you want all over it. Put it all over it. I don't even care. Maybe there's somebody that has land that wants to fund it. I don't know. These are all just open for whatever. Maybe people think that's not the experiment to do. No, they don't like force the line. All right. Well, then let's hear some other ideas, because we can't just keep waffling and talking. Again, I'm talking to myself. You can't just keep talking till your ears bleed about something that nobody's ever going to change their belief over. Granted, some people maybe heard some of my videos and said, they thought about it and said, you know what? You're right. I don't think we're on a globe. Great. Those people can think like that. But the people I'm talking about are the conformists. They're not going to hear what I say and think anything other than what they were told to think, which is nutter. He's a nutter. That's all they're going to think. There's no possible way that what they were taught is not true. So therefore, whatever they say I am, I am. And the only way that we're going to get around that is by proving it right in front of their faces. Doesn't matter how much I talk, doesn't matter how much I show this image right here. Doesn't matter how many times I show this, they're going to say, well, no, that's real because everyone says it's real. Because the news said it was real. And there hasn't been any news companies that have come out and said that it's fake, so it can't be fake. because our independent news media hasn't uncovered anything. Like they're actually checking up on stories. And yeah, that's happening. So, of course, and that's a great strategy by the powers that be, right? Have independent YouTube providers, content creators, saying the thing, doing the real investigations, showing things to be fake, and then have people that you are conforming know to call those people nutters. So it's just a vicious circle where the media gets to keep saying whatever they want, whatever they say, the conformists believe, and whatever we say, the conformists call us nutters. Mission complete, unless we do a test like this. Unless we can make it so that they have nothing left to say. They can laugh all they want. They can believe they live on their spinny ball all they want. If the earth is measurably flat, then it's flat. Then the earth is not curved like a ball. The water does not conform to a sphere. The surface of the water is flat and level because it's flat and level. And then we can get into everything else. Then we can get into all the rest of it. And one thing I saw somebody asking me the other day, and I'll show you right now, because I keep getting the question about southern flights and how does this all work, and what about GPS? Why don't you have a map? Let me show you why you don't have a map. Let's pretend that, let me get this up. Okay. So let's pretend that we're on a boat sailing out in the wide ocean. I don't know, we're somewhere far. And all of a sudden we come across a huge area of land and water. Let's say it's 25. Let's say this entire length here. Oops, that's the eraser pen. Let's say this whole length here is 25,000 miles. And we see all these continents. Continent, little island here, little island here, little island here. Okay, but this is all just open water, just green. And we get there and we say, I feel like I want to trap, maybe there's even a little ice wall back here. Okay, and we say, I feel like I want to trap these people in a sphere. I don't want them to know that they can go this way, that they can go this way. Can't really go this way because they'll hit the ice. Maybe they can go this way a little bit. Maybe there's more ice here. Who knows? But I want to trap these people in this area. So what you would do is you would take like a polar projection or whatever you need to, with the center here is the north, and you would draw out your lines of longitude, latitude, and you'd map this onto a sphere. It's called a projection. So you project it onto a sphere. Now, what's the first thing that happens? Well, this is a flat piece of paper. Therefore, it doesn't fit on a sphere. It has too much extra area. So what you would do is you would take out sections of water. Okay, take that section out. Take this section out. Get rid of this section of water. Until you had a piece of paper that wrapped around the globe. And then that would be where everything is. That would be lined up to your longitude, latitude lines. You'd line them all up, and that's where their location is. Granted, you didn't even count this water, but it's still here in reality. But once you've wrapped everything in a globe, guess what? It's not there anymore. So you put everything on a sphere, and then guess what? These distances between these locations become not what they really are, but what they would have to be on a globe. And once you've got the longitude and latitude lines, now think of this. Here comes another boat a couple years later, and this boat shows up, and they get here and they say, I don't think that this is a sphere. I don't think it is. How are they going to prove that this is not a sphere? It's impossible. Goes back to the same thing. You cannot sit and debate with these guys because they think that their things are facts. They think that this world exists on a sphere when we know that it doesn't, that this world is a flat world. It's just because it's been wrapped in a sphere with longitude, latitude. So when people say, Jaron, where's your map? Well, what do you mean? What map would be okay with you? Because no map is going to match your map. It's not going to match your sizes or your longitude, latitude, because that's a lie. So I cannot provide a map. It's not even worth trying. What is this person on this little boat going to do? Is he going to build a map of this area? How would he know? You would have no idea. So certain things would happen if in areas like this. Like, for instance, I don't know, people have heard of MH370, which somehow went down somewhere. And for those people who think everything's a hoax, you need to think about things like, why would they ever let that hoax out? What good does that do? You think that they wanted people to know that there's no GPS tracking on planes? No. That's a real story. People crashed. They probably crashed here. And guess what? Boats would go around and they would never enter here because GPS doesn't say it exists. As long as GPS says this is this way and this is this way, you would never notice that. It would be interesting. It would be interesting if there was ever a story about people going into that area and not being tracked. Wouldn't that be interesting? Let's see if that would be interesting. Let's go to the browser. and let's see if there's any stories about boats. Let's see here. Search ship MH370 lost. Oops, there you go. Oh, look at MH370 ship disappears for 3 days. Excuse me? Yeah, the ship disappeared for 3 days because it fell off of radar, and they couldn't find it. And then the ship came out of radar, and they're like, "We've been here the whole time." Well, guess what? That's what happens when you've taken out sections of ocean, and people don't know it. You lose ships, you lose planes in water, and nobody can go there because you've erased it. It doesn't exist. How can you even say that the tracking beacon is found? You can't. So this is the kind of people, I guess, of our government. Again, this is my opinion. For those of you out there who want to say that everything I'm saying is a fact, how would I know this is a fact? I look at evidence and I form a opinion. That's what it is. How would I know that's a fact? Oh, I talked to the plane guy right when he went down. He told me he was going down in a place where there's no GPS. And no, you're crazy. So anyway, there's lots of stories about that. And those people have basically gone quiet. The sailor, what do you call them, captains of these boats, they went missing. You can't find an interview with them or anything. But they were missing for 3 days. Well, they went missing because they're in an area that's not tracked. It doesn't exist. So yeah, maybe. But anyway, back to my. Did you not get to see that? Oh, you did. Back to my drawing, which is much prettier. So that's my kind of opinion on things like that. That's why you've got southern flights that go and then they get lost over the miscellaneous area, and nobody would ever know. No pilot would know. How would a pilot know that he's flying over an area that isn't tracked? Because the GPS thinks this area exists and this area exists, and that they connect. So the plane's just flying. It's flying over here, but it thinks it's over here, and then they connect. It's very simple. It's not even a safety problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a problem like, well, what if they think they need to get to this island real quick? Well, GPS will get them to that island. Nobody's flying by eyesight out over the Pacific Ocean. Pilots aren't even flying anymore in commercial jets anyway. They're not the ones flying it. They land, they take off. I would much rather have a great pilot than a bad one. But as far as once they get up there, they just press the autopilot and go. You know, another interesting thing about planes, just real quick, that most people don't even know. Did you know that there's not really a good indicator of your height, your altitude? That for the most part, planes don't even really, there's no like a tracking, there's no GPS of your altitude really. That those things are not known. It's kind of, that's why when you get close to the ground, you have to, you get the ground-based, airport-based tracking system that tells you when to land, because the other tracking systems can't even tell how close you are to the ground. So something else to look into, check into that, but there's just not a good vector for height. Well, there would be if there was satellites, you'd think. You could just bounce it off the plane, get a triangulation, but they don't really do that. So, yeah, I forgot what I was talking about, but everything just seems like a scam. Medicine, big science, the music industry, TV, everything seems like it. Weapons manufacturers, the United States shipping in weapons, everything. Lots of fun. The illegal drug trade, elections, give you these two people that you think you're picking one. Make sure you divide the country by making them red and blue. You're a Democrat, you're a Republican. So back to the original point, just to kind of go through it one more time. My plan is to, and I don't need to be the head of it. I'm not saying it's going to go through me. I don't care who it goes through. I would love anybody else to take it over, in fact. But I'm also very invested in the fact that I'm tired of waffling. Meaning I can just keep saying this all day. I can keep saying this stuff every time we have a show. Every Globebusters and every Monday Night Raw, and I say the same thing because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, I don't feel like there's any results coming from me continuing to sit down and try and talk to people who will never believe it. But I do think with a test like this, then they don't have a choice. And it's not a matter of when I say something is, okay, well, the reason we see Kanagawa is because the mountains are actually there and they say it's refraction. Well, even though I think I'm right, they won't even consider that I am right. And I can't really say, well, you have to believe me. You must believe me. No, they don't have to. But with a test like the Force the Line test, I feel differently. I feel like I would go into a debate with just that one thing and say, great, you've got all your bendy light, you've got all your levitating buildings and your levitating smokestacks and everything that you believe in. That's fine. but there's a simple 2-mile test that shows you that the Earth does not curve like a ball. There's no antipodes. Nobody's living underneath you. There's a reason why you were told that Australia and San Francisco are level. That's because they're level. They're level and flat. Not level in the make-believe ball world. Not let's say everything pulls into spheres when it's never been shown. None of that. We're talking about real world, real, seeable, repeatable, observable, falsifiable results with a test that everyone can get on, everyone can help. And so again, go to that form. If you don't remember, it's bit.ly/forcealign. And let me know if you've got any suggestions. Maybe you think, no, I don't think it should be done that way. I think it should be done with metal rods. Great. Tell me. Tell me why. What is the benefit? How are we going to be able to keep those square? I think we should put brace brackets so that they stay square with each change. Whatever it is, let me know. Oh, I know a guy in construction that will do the whole fence 2 miles long, for $5,000. Whatever it is. We just need to know kind of, we don't even know where to do it. One of the things is you do have to be kind of flat on the land, meaning it can't be hilly, but it could be a little change. I mean, if your hill goes up a little here and here and here, well, that's fine, because as long as this post stays level, you're fine. So you could even be up here 2 feet or something. It doesn't matter. But again, if there was a mountain here like this, well, we can't keep this level, so can't go up here and keep level. So we wouldn't be able to do that. So it needs to be 2-mile stretch somewhere. And, and if somebody knows of a location that it could be by water, that's even better. Then you've got the double view. I don't know if we have it by a beach. This canal that we did this thing by could possibly work up on the road there. We'd have to have this thing up quite a bit higher, maybe 6-7 feet. That's a possibility. But if I'm just looking for options, looking for ideas of where and who, and I don't know. Maybe I'll put together a little video or something just to try and get some, I don't know if it's corporate backing, or I don't know what you want to say. I don't know who's going to want to do that, but I do think it's an event that people would show up for. I've already had people talking to me today that says if it's on the West Coast, I'll be there, because it'll take a few days and it will take a lot of people. And I'm sure everyone's going to want to verify it. So it needs to be walkable, which would just be a 2-mile walk. You get your camera and you start walking. Make sure that every single top piece like this is leveled. That's why I said it would be nice to have little bubble levelers. They have, I think it's like $4 for 100 of them. So, that's not a cost issue. Attach each one of those to these boards all the way down so that somebody's just walking. And if we need to adjust something, then we adjust it. But we need to keep these, make sure that they're level. And then we do the force align on the next line. And then again, we have to have people walking with us, or whoever's going to do it. This is another thing. If you know how to keep these squared to where this post is put in, maybe there's a little bracket here. People who have done the rectilineator experiment, maybe they have some advice as to what worked well when they did it and what didn't. And then you'd have another post here, sorry. And then you would need to square this up. So then you're not using the level anymore because it needs to be square with this board. And then you go square with that board. And so on and so forth. And again, it would be moving up because this would be the part that is technically curving. And it is true. I mean, we wouldn't see that on a curved Earth. You wouldn't, every one of these levels would show level because the amount of change would be so minuscule in each one of these levels that you would never see it. That would be true. So what you would see is this post heading up to hit this top post. Now, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I'm fairly confident that I don't think that there's a curvature of the Earth. I don't think what I see is certainly not the curvature of a ball. Doesn't appear that things would ever get over the edge of that ball and be leaning sideways. No one's seen anything like that. Even pilots who say that they fly above the Earth. They fly above it. So it's very easy to see how this can become confusing and how we've been sold on something that just simply is metaphysical. The idea that two people upside down from each other would both see the world as we all see it? No. It's fantasy. It's not reality. And it's not like I was born believing that. I believed the ball like everyone else. But it just took really contemplating some of these things. That the big giant mat, think of how heavy the Earth would be. Just think. It's ridiculous to even fathom. Doesn't it make more sense that we are the solid center, the ground? This is it. And everything else is celestial. There's nothing, I don't look through my telescope at the moon and say, man, that looks just like the Earth. Hey, look at Mars, it looks like the Earth, and Saturn does with just rings. No, they're nothing like it. Nothing at all. Not even close. Nothing should tell us that the moon looks like the Earth unless somehow some people went there and stood on the ball sideways. Then if we were all told that as children, then we would grow up believing you can live on a ball and you walk around it and nobody's ever upside down, just always right side up. Not me anymore. I can't even fathom that. Can't even imagine that could possibly be true because there's so many things that would be the case if that was true. Just like if we did go to the moon in 1969, then we would already be having hotels on Jupiter. That's the way technology increases. Not, we had cell phones and then nothing ever happened after that. It's just been cell phones. No, the cell phones have gotten better and more efficient and quicker and more memory. You used to have to ship a 500, I don't know if it's maybe it was like 5 megabyte computer or memory used to be shipped in a plane, in an airplane. It was huge. It was like a van size. And, now you can keep almost a terabyte in your pocket. So things get better and more efficient, but not space travel. Space travel has remained stagnant. They've done nothing. They've shown CGI pictures of planets and called them real. They show little dust films of some robot on Mars that looks ridiculous. It's just such a joke. They drive over a mushroom, a guy points it out, and NASA just says, no, there's nothing. Don't look here. It's a mushroom. It's a mushroom growing on Mars. So if it was life, NASA would be all over that. Well, they don't want anybody to know that there's a mushroom on Mars because what does that mean? It means the mushroom's on Earth, not on Mars. So it's just funny. It is funny. Because again, I can say these things all day long. I've been saying them for years, and now at this point I realize that it's not going to get us anywhere. So again, just before I close out, talk to people make a video about it, try and get some people who are interested. I think it's time to maybe somebody come up with a name for it, but let's just cut the crap. What do they say? Shit or get off the pot. That's what we want to say. That's the test I'm going to promote. The shit or get off the pot test. No, that's my opinion of myself. So the fact that I could stay around and just say all the time the same things over and over. Yeah, Mars is fake. Can't go there. Moon's fake. Nobody goes to orbit. The shuttles are shut down. I could say that all the time, but I should never expect different results, which is frustration at never getting to prove what I'm saying. That's do I have good evidence? Great. Do I have things that I think definitely show me that what I'm saying is correct? Yeah. But it's not going to convince people who are on the side of what they consider to be facts. You're going to need to show them a force the line experiment. Maybe they need to be there. Maybe we need to leave it up. But it is what it is. And I think that it's repeatable in the fact that if anybody's doing it, then as long as they keep that top bar leveled, and then they build the force line, that they're going to have the same results. That they would end up showing that there is no curvature. Because if there's curvature, then it's going to show in the distance between those two poles or those two bars going across. So if you have any help at all, let's make this the last experiment. We don't need another Salton Sea. We don't need another, failed test at the canal by Jaron. We don't need another, because it seems like all the tests are very close. But again, they're always, when I hear now about somebody doing a laser test, I'm like, a big deal. The reason I feel that way is because I know it's not going to be something that anybody can hang their hat on, because they're just going to say that the light bent. Oh yeah, of course you saw it over 18 miles because the light was bent. Okay, great. Then if you can just get away with saying that, then fantastic. Then what are we doing laser tests for? I've got 2 lasers here. I'm like, these things, now what am I going to do with these? Because it's not going to get the job done. The job needs to be, and we can't just go by line of sight. We see Kanagawa at 175 miles. It should be 14,000 feet below the curve. It's only 9,000 feet tall. So it's somehow magically levitating 5,000 feet. Doesn't convince them. They don't care. Doesn't matter. They can just say refraction. Well, guess what? There is no refraction causing the force the line experiment to prove that the Earth is flat. There's going to be no deflection, refraction, diffusion, illusion, none of those. It's going to be what it is. And so that's what I'm looking for. That's my next step. No more talk. It's getting old. It's just, yeah. I mean, do I feel like I'm saying the truth? I do. But I also feel like I don't want to be doing the same thing in a year, saying the same things, showing the same stuff about the moon landing. Maybe people need to have a test like this to wake them up, where then, okay, well, we've been lied about. Then did we go to the moon? Start looking into it. You'll find out we didn't. Start looking into space travel. Why are none of these things happening? Then you'll start to change the world, in my opinion, because this is the kind of thing that will change the world. You know, I was listening to the debate show last night, a non sequitur, an older one, where it's people, everything that they are about being atheists and being militant atheists and double-fisted atheists and being so proud of that, all comes because of the idea of space and what science has shown. And that's the scariest thing to me, is that you're taking men's word for saying they know the age of the Earth, and you don't understand that the dating methods they use could be so flawed and have been shown to be flawed. The fact they're finding dinosaurs, they found one in some river recently that still weighed 2,500 pounds or something out of its original 3,000. They say it's a dinosaur, 110 million years old. And it was just preserved accidentally in some sort of soot or something. It's just ridiculous. They're finding, soft tissue in dinosaur bones. People are going to conferences and speaking, PhD scientists saying, we have tested these 10 random dinosaurs, and every one of them came back with soft tissue, meaning that they're probably 20,000 years old or less. And what happens? They get their paper pulled, and they get told to never come back. Or they get told by one of the companies, sent in these 10 random samples to this. They didn't tell the dating place what they were sending in. So the dating place just took these 10 samples, dated them all, sent them back, and then they found out later that those were actually from a dinosaur, and they called the people and said, you're never allowed to bring your stuff here again. That's the kind of science that we're living with. That's the kind of science that we have been given. Do you think that's science? Sorry, that doesn't conform to our 67 million year old dinosaurs. You're not allowed to send things to be dated here anymore. What does that teach scientists? What are they going to do? They've spent their whole life so they're just going to conform. They're conformists. Okay, well, whatever. Well, I guess you're right. I'll tell you next time, and we'll make sure it's 67 million years old. So we're never going to get the truth from these guys. They're not about the truth, because they have to keep, and I don't know what scientist says the quote. Was it, I don't know if it's like Maxwell or somebody, but somebody said that there's never a change in a scientific belief during that scientist's lifetime. Never. Because they're men. They're men who can't say that they've been wrong. They're men that can't say, oh, my theory got surpassed? Okay, that's fine. No, it has to wait till they're dead and somebody new comes along and pushes them out of the way. Well, that's kind of the situation with all this stuff, is that all these guys that have been doing paleontology their entire careers, they're not going to allow somebody to come along and say that dinosaurs are 20,000 years old. So they have to squelch it. So they're not going to allow somebody to come along and say that the Earth is flat. They have to get rid of it. But they're getting rid of it by saying, go measure that across the water. Hey, Nat Geo, go measure that across Salton Sea. Hey, measure that across the ocean. Hey, measure this, because they know when you measure it that you're going to have that band of distortion, which is going to cause it to be behind what appears to be water. And they're going to say, and even though you see buildings you shouldn't see, and you're going to get the same question. Well, why do we see half the building? Well, why do we see any of the building? Well, it's back and forth again. So who's going to believe you? Because they're going to say, well, I don't believe that the Earth is flat. Why can't I see the shore? You say, well, because this, and this, and that's not going to convince them, because they're going to say, well, no, there's a wall of water in front of it, so it must be behind water. And that will go on forever. Those two people will never, either you see what's going on here, or you see what you're shown and what you've been told, and that's as far as you'll go. In that case, you got a deadlock. You'll never get anywhere. No one will ever change their minds about anything. And so I think we need to do something that changes people's minds. And that's going to be a test that's going to either, I mean, if it's shown that the Earth is curved, I know of several flat earthers that will immediately renounce, or at least say, no, they were wrong about the shape of the Earth. There's no flat earthers that are going to ignore evidence like that. Okay, can we ignore SpaceX saying they're landing some jets? Yeah, sure. I ignore that. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're helium balloons coming down. I don't know if they've got that technology to land jets. Whatever it is, they're not going to space, and I think that the Earth is demonstrably stationary and flat. So it doesn't really change a lot about that. But when it comes to measurements, that's the problem, is I'm looking for that measurement that the Earth is a ball. And where is that? You can't give me an equation that kind of works sometimes, doesn't go very far. You can, it's only 8 inches in the first mile. Okay, great. But that can't be measured. So how can we measure it? Well, this is how. Because nothing else is working. We can't measure based on our eyes. I mean, really think about it. As much as I say our eyes are great, our senses are great, they're great, but we all know that our eyes are at least flawed to the point where, number one, they're lenses. You got these convex lenses that are looking at the world. Okay, we know our brain switches around images that are upside down. Those things can be proven with a pinhole camera. So we know that there's a lot going on in our brain that's interpreting things that our eyes are seeing. In fact, if you've heard me read the book Flat Earth and the Moon Smiles, then you'll remember that I think that guy did it the best of explaining that, if I told you you hear an orchestra right now across the street, I said, where do you hear them? You would point to your ear. And if I said, if you smell a cake in your kitchen, where do you smell that? You would point to your nose. You smell it in your nose. And you taste food in your mouth. And if I said, where do you see boats go over the curvature? It takes a while for people to realize that you see it in your eye. You don't see it at the horizon with the boat going over curvature. Your seeing is in your eye. It's not external. Everything is internal. So if that's the case, then our brains are doing things with what we're seeing, and then your conditioning and what you were taught and how you were, you look at the world, all that stuff is mixed in with it. And we know that cameras are not perfect. Cameras distort images all the time. They can't be as good as your eyes. They don't have the kind of field of view. If they do, then they're distorted. We know how that all works. But the problem is that we can't, to use that then to prove where we are in the world, maybe is not the best method. So the best method is something that basically everyone sees the same way, which is measurements, which is a ruler to me is a ruler to somebody else. There's really no difference there. You can't say, well, this ruler is 12. I say it's 11 inches. No, okay, well, somebody's clearly wrong there. It's not like looking out over water and saying that boat's going over the curve. No, that boat's becoming miraged with the convergence line. Either or, right? It's just there's such a big logical step you have to take, or illogical step in my opinion, but to say, okay, I see that boat going down, getting covered up by the water a little bit, it must be going sideways. We've got cruise ships sitting perpendicular to me on the other side of the earth, but it's not, they're right side up, of course, and water, which we know how that works. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just not a globe. Every time I think about it, I try and convince myself sometimes, and it's just not. It's just not, and you can't see it in any other way once you've seen this. So I don't think that things that are true are like that. I can't picture something being true, and then I think of it a different way, and then I say, okay, I cannot no longer think of it being true. It's like even yesterday, the part of the SpaceX launch that read that they modeled with Astronomy Live. Before the show, when I was talking to my wife, she said, well, it can't be done, right? I said, oh no, they'll probably figure out a way to do it. It wasn't like I thought, oh, they're going to get in there and they're not going to be able to do it, because I didn't know how they'd be able to do it. I really couldn't think of how they'd be able to do it. But I also said they'd probably be able to do it. Like, I could imagine that me being wrong about saying that launch couldn't be true. I can imagine that. But when you're talking about living on a globe, that's where I can't imagine it. I just can't imagine it anymore. So, but I'm willing to take a step and say, hey, if the test proves that I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. You can't, right now, there's things that we can, they're not ignore, but there's things that you can explain away because there is no measurement. And once you look into geodesy and how they get at first you got to be thinking as a flat earther, well, don't they measure the shape of the earth? Okay, so geodesy should be the answer. But then you look into that and you find out what they actually measure and how it's, most of it's planar surveying, and even the geodetic surveying, they're not doing big distances. You got Jesse Kozlowski saying that, it's rare for him to do a mile. And you're like, well, hold on a second. So it's just a bunch of guys that are submitting their papers, and then you realize that nobody's ever mapped the oceans. Nobody's out there with chains measuring them, and we'll go this distance, and how far are you? We'll triangulate to that boat. You have no idea, because you've got boats, you've got currents, you've got wind. You don't know where you're at in the ocean. You can't measure that. So the ocean's distances are measured as curved oceans because they have to be. It has to be. So once you realize that 70% of the surface is by default curved Earth, then it's not very hard to figure out, well, okay, well then, yeah, and from San Francisco, California, we go up to the Colorado Rockies and we go down to New York, and you've got what starts to form a very simple, what do they call it? A geoid or something like that. So anyway, it's just once you've started to look into all these things that you thought were proof, that you thought were evidence, and they're not. To some, the conformists, it is. You ask Res Rhetoric if it's proof to him that geodetic surveying is proof of the shape of the Earth, he would say yes. Absolutely, that's proof. That's guys going out there and measuring the Earth, and it's right. You ask them if GPS is proof of, and they would say yes. That there's people out there who think that because GPS works on the globe, that means that the globe is true. That's a struggle for me, because if I can't sit somebody down and say, "Do you understand what you're saying? That's not even, you're not making any sense. That just because something works on a globe, you can't then say that means that it has to be a globe." No, it doesn't. You don't think people are smart enough to fool you and make a grid system from a different area and tell you live on a ball? How do you not know that? How do you not know that's possible? It's like these guys think that they're building satellites and sending them to 13 billion miles around, Neptune, but they couldn't fool you by making a grid system, a mathematical grid system with Cartesian to curve linear points. You didn't think that could happen? It's like this picture of the Earth from this 22,000 mile satellite Himawari 8, that must be real. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, it's on a ball. You don't think that they can get images from the sky and then map them onto a ball in about, 0.1 seconds, and then you think it's real? It's just baffling to me that the ideas, the things that would be proof to me are, I don't know, or the things that are proof to them could never be proof to me, because I understand I can be fooled. So it's very easy to imagine them fooling me, just like it's easy for me to imagine satellites not being real. Why? Because we don't use them. Nothing. I've never had my cell phone go out. Oh, my cell phone's down. The satellite's down. My DirecTV's down. Man, the satellite got hit by a meteorite. Never happened. Why? Because it's just pretend. In fact, if you go to satellite communications, you've got I love when they put this stuff in Wikipedia. It makes me feel good. But go to satellite. I don't know if it's satellite communications or what. But you even have a senator from a while back who said the communication satellite. I don't know if this is the right story or not. Let's see here. This one. Because you had basically, no, I don't know where this one is. Well, it's the one where he says that it's as crooked as maybe it was the Satellite Communications Act. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Satellite Communication Act talks about Kennedy. Kennedy was the one who built the little, 1962. Yeah, so here you've got disagreement with the passing of the act. So this act was the Satellite Communications Act, put in effect by Kennedy in 1962. Says the act was very controversial and was left very open-ended. The act was signed August 31st, 1962 by Kennedy. Says the act aimed to join together private communication companies in order to make satellites more attainable. So they basically wanted to take, and remember, AT&T had laid the whole groundwork, basically laid the entire country of telephone wire, and then these guys come along and say, oh, we're going to do satellites now. So this Democratic senator, oh, you're not looking at my screen. Sorry, that's my bad. That is my bad. Always got to have one a show. One a show. There you go. Sorry about that. Disagreement. Yeah, so Senator Russell B. Long of Louisiana said of the act, when the first bill started out, I thought it was as crooked as a dog's hind leg. I now am convinced that would be a compliment. This bill is as crooked as a barrel of snakes. The American Telephone and Telegraph Company, which is AT&T, argued that using space for communications was just a modern representation of the submarine communications cables currently in use. Okay, so AT&T is saying, hey, we've just laid all this groundwork, and now this is just a modern representation of the submarine cables already in use. Meaning, we don't need those. You don't need to do any of that. You're just pretending. So what happens? Let's continue reading. AT&T proposed joint ownership of all the communication satellites, with control based on system facilities. But since AT&T had a majority of the world communications, this proposition was opposed by other communication companies. The Federal Communication Commission, the FCC, proposed that the 10 companies join together into a program, but this was put down with antitrust legislation. Continue on. The compromise allowing the bill to pass was that there would be government regulation on the communication industry. The United States Congress made it so that all companies registered by the FCC had non-discriminatory access to the satellite systems. So all of a sudden now a bunch of people can get rich. A bunch of people can take advantage of this hoax. Not just a few. As long as you let a bunch of us steal money from the citizens, then we're in. But we're not letting just you three companies get away with it. Can we get in? We get in with you? All right, we're in. Pass the law. Let's all screw the country and pretend that there's boxes up in the sky that give you all your data. And slowly, as the years go by, people start to realize that balloons are falling out of the sky, that we don't ever have anything happen, that they're putting up satellites by SpaceX every week. And it's like, well, what did that do? What was that one for? Who has something today that they didn't have yesterday? Nobody I know. Nobody I know. I don't know anybody who said, Jaron, did you see they put up that satellite yesterday and now I get TV at my house? Nope. Don't think so. And every time they go up, I can go online and look at those satellite things. Like 5 or 6 of the satellites are shown to be not working, so they obviously weren't important. It's just all pretend. I don't know. And again, if it was real, there'd be so much that would go with it. Think of the space junk that they say is all over, and all these things are up there, and nothing ever just degrades and falls out of the sky, and it's just crazy. When they do fall out of the sky, they're on a balloon attached. So, was I going to finish reading this? Oh, so it says, the United States government, including the President, NASA, and the FCC, were all to maintain certain duties to monitor the communication satellites. Thank you, NASA. The President was to observe every aspect of the development and operation of the satellite systems. He is responsible for providing arrangements with foreign participation. NASA was designated as the technical advisor for the FCC and the Communications Corporation to the extent that would aid the nation. NASA to receive reimbursement for its services it rendered. The largest burden of regulation falls on the FCC. It was deemed responsible for making sure that the competition is present and that small businesses would be able to participate. And so you've got the President of the United States that's in charge of space. And if he ever found out that we weren't going to the moon, couldn't go to the moon, and he said, all right, let's shut it down, well, then you get shot in Dallas. That's what happens. And then LBJ takes over, and LBJ is from Texas, like George Bush Jr., all Texans, and before you know it, what happens? You've got all of Texas is basically this NASA conglomerate, and Texas booms, and Florida booms, and it's all about this space. And you have the head of the space committee was Lyndon B. Johnson, and he stepped into the president's role and said, no, we're going to continue on these things. And you've got Nixon, who takes him to the moon 6 times, all in Nixon's presidency. Crazy stuff. Crazy. And trying to think if I need anything else from you guys. I don't think so. Oh, I was just going to show you a few things. Are we looking at my browser? Yes. So this is why it just gets so frustrating. So this here, I don't know if you saw this. This is NASA's probe spies Mars rover Curiosity from space. Okay, there you go. That's Curiosity from space. Clearly looks like it to me. Yep. I don't see his tracks, but it's because it was dusty there, probably that day. A lot of dust storms, dust tornadoes on Mars. At least that's what I've been told. Yep, I see him right there. Yep, he's right in that little spot. Nice picture. This is the sands, the dark sands of the Mons. This is a rock. I think water used to be here. I'm pretty sure they had ancient water on Mars. Pretty sure. So that's one nice story. You can read that one. That's at space.com. Curiosity Mars rover photo. It looks real to me. I'm not going to argue with it. How about this one? Now this looks real. Now this, the other one I was kind of joking because it looks kind of real. Like this one. This one looks beyond real. I'm almost thinking I could reach out and touch it. What is this? It's a photo of NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter shows a crater or pit in the planet's southern hemisphere, where it is currently summer. Carbon dioxide ice gives the region a Swiss cheese look in this view released June 2nd, 2017. One more time. Take a look at that. And if you want to believe in this, it's not even they're not saying like this is an image or like a animation CGI. This is supposed to be real. That's supposed to be a real picture. What the hell is going on? If you're out there saying this is real, you, sir, are a conformist. I bet you got good grades in school and think your government loves you. Congratulations. If you're out there and you're yelling bullshit, welcome to Team Jeranism. It is a lonely place to be. So yeah, that's more BS. Oh, and this is just that form, the Force the Line form, again at bit.ly/Force the Line. Any info that you can give, whether it's, like I said, logistical, or you're an engineer, you've got some ideas. I certainly do not have the best track record of experiments so far. The first one I ever did, the 4-mile one, is the only one that really went well or as planned, and did show that we could see the laser at 6 inches, but then again, at a 3-foot camera height, I think that the amount of curvature supposed to be hidden was a foot. So we could see it at 6 inches, and it's supposed to be a foot. Again, that's no one's going to change their mind over where they live because of that experiment. And the other experiments did not go as planned. So I'm not saying I'm the person that should anyway be in charge of this. It's just something I want to see happen, and will do whatever I can to help it to happen. And I think it's if you want to go watch, I'll put the in the description. I'll put the link to Brian Mullen. Obviously, the guy's an engineer, far smarter than me. Understands what he's talking about far better than I did earlier. But I got the gist of it, and just wanted to get people on the same team. That no matter what level of belief you're at, whether you believe that I'm completely wrong, whether you believe that I'm right, whether you aren't sure, you're on the fence, there's no reason why anybody should be saying, "Nah, we don't need to do this experiment." No, we should continue sending up high altitude balloons, and continue shooting lasers across water, and continue zooming in on things. And no, you shouldn't be saying that, because maybe I'm the last one. Maybe you've all been yelling that for months. I don't know. But it hit me yesterday, like, what is going on? What am I doing? Like, I don't want to just waffle in this. Well, maybe it could be, but it kind of shows this, but it does also show refraction, and it could be, the looming, and, Fata Morgana, Fata Barbosa. Nope. I think that we want to just get it done. If it takes however long it takes, I want it to be the last experiment that really needs to be done, at least for me. And then I can move on, and then I can debate anybody and just say, yeah, go check the results. Go do it yourself. That's something when I say I don't believe in Mars, or nobody can give me that. Nobody can say, Jaron, go to Mars yourself. I can't go to Mars. So that's not an option. But when we do this test, it is an option to tell people, go there and measure it. Go there. The fence is there. So if you know any companies that might be interested in getting a little boost to their sales, or get their name out there, and this kind of thing, I mean, it's something that if we shopped it right, and I'm not good at marketing or whatever, but it's something that a company would get more than their money's worth. I mean, if people posted the video of us doing this experiment, that it would get easily 1 million or more hits, and then that company's name is at the beginning of the video. That's 1 million eyes on it. So that maybe is worth more than the $10,000 or $20,000 it costs to do the test. I don't know. Just putting it out there, and hope you guys help us in getting it rolling. If you have any comments or suggestions for me, please use that form. And I think that's it for now. I'll be back soon, real soon, probably tomorrow, just to check in again and see if we can read some people's ideas and suggestions, and see if we can start moving this in the right direction, because I feel like let's just do this and be done with it. We'll know one way or the other, and I think that's what we've all wanted to know for 3 years, and I feel like I've just gotten in a rut, and it's time to get out. So appreciate you guys watching a lot, and be kind and don't lie, and do remember to do your own research, because if you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, guys, this has been Jeranism. Let's force the line.